The unexpected arrival. The star flare glided effortlessly through the vibrant nebula, its sleek hull shimmering with reflections from the swirling gases that danced around it. Captain Callan stood at the helm, his gaze fixed on the control panel as he navigated the ship with the precision born of years of experience. The soft hum of the ship's AI, known as Astra, reverberated through the cabin, her soothing voice offering occasional system updates and advice. Callan exchanged a few casual remarks with Astra, their banter a product of years of companionship. As the ship's AI, Astra had been his loyal partner on countless missions, her programmed wit and wisdom evolving over time to mimic human interaction more closely than any other AI Callan had encountered. She wasn't just a tool, she was his confidant. As they approached their destination, an unidentified alien vessel loomed ahead, and Callan's demeanor shifted from relaxed to focused. He tapped a command into the panel, summoning a detailed scan of the ship ahead. "Captain," Astra chimed, her tone more serious now. "Unidentified vessel in range. Recommend high alert. Energy readings suggest advanced weaponry." Callan's expression hardened. "All right, Astra, raise shields and prepare for evasive maneuvers. We need to be ready for anything." "Acknowledged, Captain," Astra replied, her voice calm yet filled with the urgency of the situation. The tranquil beauty of the nebula, its reds and blues swirling like cosmic artwork, seemed to fade as tension gripped the bridge. Without warning, the alien ship opened fire. Chaos erupted as alarms blared. The star flare shook violently under the impact of enemy weapons. Astra's voice pierced through the noise, issuing warnings as Callan fought to maintain control of the spiraling ship. Evasive maneuvers initiated. Shields holding at 45%, Astra reported, her voice calm despite the chaos. "Return fire," Callan barked, his hands flying across the control panel as he struggled to outmaneuver the enemy. The ship shuddered under the force of another impact, and the lights on the bridge flickered ominously. Ammunition depleted, structural integrity at 32%. "Captain, I strongly recommend..." Astra started, but Callan interrupted, his heart pounding in his chest as the ship began to lose altitude, plummeting toward the alien planet below. "We're losing altitude. Brace for impact." Astra's voice sounded both alarmed and eerily calm, mirroring Callan's own thoughts as he guided the ship toward a clearing in the dense bioluminescent forest below. The crash was brutal. Metal screeched against rock and earth, and the star flare came to a jarring halt amid the alien wilderness. Smoke billowed from the wreckage, and Callan, groggy and disoriented, struggled to regain consciousness. "Captain," Astra's voice was now faint, distorted by the damage to the ship. "Systems failing. I'm losing operational integrity." Callan groaned, pulling himself from the debris, his body aching from the impact and his head swimming with the reality of their dire situation. The ship was in ruins, and now his sole companion, Astra, was flickering, her systems failing. He moved quickly, surveying the wreckage. "Astra, can you still hear me?" He called out, panic creeping into his voice. "Captain, I have limited control. We are alone." Callan's heart sank at the word alone. They were stranded on an alien planet, far from home, with Astra on the verge of shutting down entirely. His trusted AI companion was damaged beyond repair, and he was without a crew or any functioning systems. As he tried to assess the situation, a strange movement caught his eye in the distance. Through the smoky haze, 3 figures emerged, aliens from the vessel they had collided with. Callan's muscles tensed. He knew nothing about their intentions or the customs of their race. The initial distrust was palpable as they approached him, their movements slow and measured, clearly as cautious as he was. One of the aliens, a tall and commanding woman with sharp eyes, stepped forward. Her name was Zilara, and her fierce demeanor made it clear she was a leader in her own right. She sized Callan up with a look of suspicion, her expression unreadable. "So, you're the human captain," she said, her voice cool and challenging. I hope your skills are as impressive as your ship's reputation. Callan met her gaze evenly, despite the pain in his body and the wreckage of the ship around him. We don't have time for posturing, he replied, his tone firm. If we want to survive this, we need to work together. Sci-Fi, another alien woman with a calm, nurturing presence, stepped forward. Her voice was soft and full of compassion, a stark contrast to Zalara's commanding tone. Please, let's not fight. We're all in this together. If we work as a team, I believe we can find a way off this planet. From the side, Elena, the youngest of the group, chimed in with a playful tone, trying to diffuse the tension. Yeah, come on. We've got a whole alien planet to explore. Let's make the best of it. Callan looked between the three of them, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on him. Alone, with a barely functioning ship and a failing air companion, he had little choice. They needed to form an uneasy alliance if they had any hope of surviving. Fine, he said, nodding toward the dense glowing forest beyond the wreckage. We need to secure our surroundings and find shelter. Let's start there. As the group moved cautiously into the bioluminescent alien landscape, Callan couldn't help but feel a deep sense of trepidation. The beauty of the planet, its glowing flora and alien sounds, was deceptive, masking the very real dangers that lay ahead. He glanced back at the wreckage of the star flare, where the flickering lights of Astra had now fully dimmed. The loss of his ship and the silence of Astra left a hollow ache in Callan's chest, but he didn't have time to dwell on it. He needed to keep moving, to keep these three alien women and himself alive. With a deep breath, Callan took the lead, guiding the group further into the unknown. The alien forest stretched before them, a vibrant tapestry of colors and shapes that defied imagination. The air was thick with the scent of unfamiliar flora, a heady mixture of sweet and pungent aromas that tickled their noses. Callan's eyes darted from side to side, constantly assessing their surroundings. He couldn't help but marvel at the beauty of the landscape, a kaleidoscope of purples, blues, and greens that seemed to pulse with life. Yet beneath the wonder, a current of unease ran through him. Every rustle in the undergrowth, every unfamiliar sound set his nerves on edge. We need to keep moving, Callan said, his voice low and steady. We don't know what kind of predators might be out here. Zalara, who had been keeping pace just behind him, let out a frustrated sigh. We've been walking for hours, Callan. We need to find water and shelter soon, or we'll be in real trouble. The tension between them was palpable, their contrasting leadership styles clashing in the alien environment. Callan turned to face her, his blue eyes meeting her fierce gaze. I understand your concerns, Zalara, but rushing blindly forward could lead us into even greater danger. Zalara's jaw clenched, her hands balling into fists at her sides. And your overly cautious approach could mean we miss out on vital resources. We need to take some risks if we're going to survive here. As the two leaders faced off, Sci-Fi stepped forward, her gentle presence seeming to soften the charged atmosphere. Perhaps we could take a moment to gather our thoughts and come up with a strategy, she suggested, her voice soothing and calm. We all want the same thing, to survive and find a way off this planet. Working together will give us the best chance of achieving that. Callan and Zalara exchanged glances, a grudging respect passing between them. They both knew Sci-Fi was right, even if their instincts pulled them in different directions. Before either of them could respond, Elena's excited voice rang out from up ahead. Hey, guys, you've got to see this. The young alien had bounded ahead, her natural curiosity getting the better of her. There's some kind of fruit growing on these trees, and look at these weird glowing mushrooms. Callan felt a mix of exasperation and fondness as he watched Elena frolicking among the alien flora. Her enthusiasm was infectious, but it also highlighted the potential dangers of their situation. Elena, be careful, he called out. We don't know if any of this stuff is poisonous. As they caught up with Elena, the group found themselves in a small clearing. The canopy above had thinned, allowing shafts of alien sunlight to pierce through, illuminating a patch of vibrant, multicolored plants. At the center stood a towering tree, its trunk spiraling upwards in an impossible helix, branches laden with what appeared to be fruit. Zilara approached one of the lower-hanging fruits, her eyes narrowing in concentration. These could be a valuable food source, she mused, reaching out to touch the smooth, iridescent skin of the fruit. "Wait," Sarafi called out, her voice tinged with urgency as she hurried over, gently pushing Zilara's hand away. "Let me check first. I might be able to sense if it's safe for us to eat." Callan watched as Sarafi closed her eyes, her hands hovering just above the fruit. He couldn't help but be impressed by her unique abilities and the calm assurance with which she used them. After a moment, Sarafi opened her eyes and nodded. "I believe it's safe, but we should still be cautious. Let's try a small amount first and wait to see if there are any adverse effects." As Sarafi carefully harvested a few of the fruits, Callan turned his attention back to their surroundings. He was about to suggest they move on when a low, rumbling growl echoed through the clearing. The group froze, their eyes darting around to locate the source of the sound. Callan's hand instinctively went to his side, reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. He cursed silently, remembering that most of their equipment had been lost in the crash. "Everyone stay close," he whispered, his body tensing for action. The undergrowth to their left exploded in a flurry of movement as a massive reptilian creature burst into the clearing. Its scales glistened in the bioluminescent light, shifting colors like oil on water. 6 powerful legs propelled it forward with frightening speed, and its elongated head was crowned with a frill of spines that rattled ominously as it charged. Callan's instincts took over. Without hesitation, he positioned himself between the beast and the rest of the group, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. "Scatter," he shouted, hoping to confuse the creature and buy them some time. Zilara's voice cut through the chaos, her leadership skills shining through in the moment of crisis. "Sarafi, Elena, find cover. Callan and I will try to distract it." The next few moments were a blur of frantic movement and adrenaline-fueled action. Callan and Zilara worked in tandem, circling the beast and looking for any weakness they could exploit. The creature's head swiveled between them, its 6 eyes blinking in an unsettling rhythm as it decided which prey to pursue. Callan's mind raced, searching for a solution. They had no weapons, no way to truly defend themselves against this alien predator. He locked eyes with Zilara across the clearing, seeing his own determination mirrored in her fierce gaze. In that moment, despite their earlier disagreements, he felt a surge of respect for her courage and quick thinking. The creature lunged towards Callan, its massive jaws snapping shut mere inches from his leg as he dove to the side. He rolled to his feet, panting heavily, knowing that they couldn't keep this up for long. The sheer size and strength of the beast were overwhelming, and he could feel his energy flagging with each near miss. Just when it seemed they might be overpowered, Sarafi's voice rang out from the edge of the clearing. "Callan, Zilara, cover your eyes." Without hesitation, both leaders threw their arms over their faces as a brilliant flash of light erupted, accompanied by a cloud of pollen-like spores that filled the air. The creature reared back, shaking its massive head in confusion as the spores settled on its scales and eyes. Sci-Fi emerged from behind a large, luminous plant, her hands still glowing faintly. "I used the defensive mechanism of this plant," she explained quickly. "It should disorient the creature long enough for us to escape." Callan felt a surge of admiration for Sarafi's quick thinking and knowledge of the alien flora. Her unexpected intervention had likely saved their lives. "Good work," he said, his voice filled with genuine appreciation. "Let's move now." The group retreated swiftly, putting as much distance between themselves and the disoriented predator as possible. As they ran, Callan couldn't help but reflect on how quickly they had come to rely on each other's strengths. Zilara's fierce determination, Sarafi's knowledge and quick thinking, and even Elena's ability to spot potential resources, they all played a crucial role in their survival. After what felt like hours of running, they finally slowed to a stop in another small clearing, this one bordered by towering crystal-like formations that seemed to hum with a low, soothing frequency. Panting heavily, the group took a moment to catch their breath and assess any injuries. Callan leaned against one of the crystal structures, feeling the cool, smooth surface against his back. His muscles ached from the exertion, and he could feel a few scratches stinging on his arms where branches had caught him during their flight. But overall, they had been incredibly lucky. He looked around at his companions, a mix of emotions swirling within him: relief at their narrow escape, pride in how well they had worked together, and a growing sense of connection to these alien women who were quickly becoming more than just reluctant allies. Zelara caught his eye, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Not bad, Captain," she said, her tone a mixture of respect and lingering challenge. "Though I still think we could have taken that thing down if we had proper weapons." Callan couldn't help but chuckle, shaking his head. "Maybe next time we'll stick around long enough to find out," he replied, matching her wry tone. Sci-Fi moved among them, her gentle hands checking for injuries. "Let me see your arm, Callan," she said softly, noticing the scratches. As she tended to his wounds, he felt a warmth spread through him that had nothing to do with the alien sun overhead. Her touch was soothing, her presence a balm to his frayed nerves. Elena, seemingly unfazed by their brush with death, bounced on her toes as she examined the crystal formations. "This place is amazing," she exclaimed, her enthusiasm undimmed. "Did you see how that creature's scales changed color? And these crystals, they're singing." Despite the gravity of their situation, Callan found himself smiling at Elena's irrepressible spirit. Her ability to find wonder and excitement in even the most dangerous situations was both endearing and, he had to admit, somewhat useful. It helped keep their spirits up in the face of overwhelming odds. As the adrenaline of their encounter began to fade, the weight of their situation settled back onto Callan's shoulders. They were still stranded on an alien world, with no clear path to rescue or escape. "We should rest here for a bit," Callan said, his voice carrying the authority of a seasoned leader. "Recover our strength and plan our next move. Zelara, would you help me scout the perimeter? We need to make sure this area is secure." Zelara nodded, her earlier frustration with his caution seemingly forgotten in the wake of their shared ordeal. As they moved to secure the area, Callan felt a new level of understanding forming between them. Their leadership styles might differ, but their shared goal, survival, was bringing them closer together. Sci-Fi set about creating a small camp, using her knowledge of the local flora to gather safe materials for bedding and shelter. Elena, under Sci-Fi's gentle guidance, began collecting some of the fruits they had found earlier, creating a small stockpile of potential food. As the alien sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of deep purple and fiery orange, the group gathered around a small fire that Sci-Fi had managed to start using some of the bioluminescent plants. The warm glow cast flickering shadows across their faces, highlighting the mix of exhaustion and determination in their eyes. Callan looked around at his unlikely crew, feeling a swell of emotion that caught him off guard. In just one day, they had faced death together, saved each other's lives, and begun to form bonds that transcended their differences. The weight of leadership still pressed heavily on him, but for the first time since the crash, he felt like they might actually have a chance at survival. As they shared the alien fruits and recounted the day's events, a sense of camaraderie began to grow. Zelara shared stories of battles she had fought to protect her people, her voice softening as she spoke of the losses she had endured. Sci-Fi talked about her training as a healer, her eyes lighting up as she described the intricate connections between all living things. Elena regaled them with tales of her adventures and close calls, her animated gestures bringing laughter to the group. Listening to it all, Callan felt the walls he had built around himself begin to crumble. He found himself sharing his own stories of daring space rescues, of quiet moments watching distant stars, of the loneliness that sometimes came with command. As he spoke, he noticed Sci-Fi watching him with a soft, understanding smile, while Zelara's gaze held a new respect. As the alien moon rose, casting a silvery glow of the landscape, Callan took first watch. Though his senses were alert for danger, his mind wandered to the unexpected emotions stirring within him. He admired Zalara's fierce courage, was comforted by Seraphi's soothing presence, and found joy in Elena's boundless enthusiasm. These women, once strangers, were becoming more than just survivors he had to protect. They were friends, confidants, and perhaps more. In this alien world, old rules no longer applied. To survive, they would have to rely on one another completely. Callan realized they might find something beyond survival, connection. He made a silent promise. They would survive, find a way off the planet, and face whatever challenges lay ahead together. For the first time since the crash, Callan felt truly hopeful. A dangerous exploration. As the alien moon dipped below the horizon, the first rays of the unfamiliar sun pierced through the phosphorescent canopy of the bioluminescent forest, illuminating the landscape in shades of violet and turquoise. Callan rubbed his eyes, shaking off the remnants of sleep. The air felt heavy with moisture and mystery, and the sounds of the forest came alive with an orchestra of alien life. He looked over at his companions, still nestled among the soft, glowing foliage. Zalara was the first to stir, her sharp eyes snapping open, instantly alert. "Morning, Captain," she said, a hint of a smirk playing at her lips. "Ready for another day of survival?" Callan returned her smile, feeling the camaraderie from their previous night's shared stories, strengthening their bond. "More than ready, but we need to strategize first. We don't know what threats this planet holds." Seraphi joined them, her gentle demeanor calming. "The forest feels different today. There's a vibrancy in the air." Her eyes darted toward the lush greenery surrounding them, noting the glimmer of dew on the plants, as if they were waiting for something to happen. "I can sense there's life here, and not all of it is friendly. We need to be cautious." Elena, who had been eavesdropping from her spot, jumped up excitedly. "Can we explore? There are so many incredible things here. I saw some plants last night that glowed even brighter." Her enthusiasm was contagious, and Callan felt a flicker of excitement stir within him as well, but he knew the dangers that lurked in the beauty. "Exploration is necessary, but we must keep our wits about us," he replied, adopting a serious tone. "Let's gather some supplies first. If we're going to explore, we should at least have food and water." As they prepared for their venture, Seraphi expertly gathered the bioluminescent fruits they had found, placing them in a makeshift pouch made from woven leaves. Callan noticed how her movements were graceful, a blend of purpose and elegance that reflected her nurturing spirit. Meanwhile, Zalara surveyed their surroundings, her keen instincts picking up subtle cues from the forest. "We should stick together and keep an eye on the terrain," she suggested, her voice steady. With their supplies packed, the group set off into the heart of the alien forest. The vibrant colors pulsed around them as if the flora had a life of its own. Callan led the way, feeling the weight of leadership settle on his shoulders again. Behind him, Zalara walked with purpose, her fierce presence a reminder of the strength they needed to survive. Seraphi and Elena chatted animatedly, their laughter mixing with the sounds of rustling leaves and distant animal calls. As they ventured deeper, the forest became denser, the towering trees looming overhead like ancient sentinels. Callan could feel a shift in the atmosphere, an unsettling tension that prickled at the back of his neck. "Stay close," he said, his voice low, as they navigated through the twisting roots and thick underbrush. "We have no idea what creatures may be watching us." Just then, Elena squealed with delight. "Look at this." She had spotted a cluster of iridescent flowers that seemed to shimmer in the light. "They're so pretty." Before Callan could warn her, she darted toward the flowers, reaching out to touch them. "Wait, Elena," Seraphi called, but it was too late. As Elena brushed her fingers against the petals, a sudden burst of color exploded from the flowers, sending a cloud of sparkling spores into the air. Callan's heart raced as he rushed forward, grabbing Elena by the arm. "Get back. We don't know what that is." The spores hung in the air, shimmering like tiny stars, and for a moment, the forest seemed to hold its breath. Then, as if triggered by their presence, the flowers began to emit a low, resonating hum. Callan felt the vibrations in his bones, a strange, intoxicating energy that made him dizzy. "We need to move," he shouted, his instincts kicking in. "Now." Solara quickly grabbed Elena's other arm, pulling her back as the flowers continued to pulsate with an eerie rhythm. "What do they want?" Elena asked, her voice a mix of wonder and fear. Callan glanced at the flowers, then at his companions. "Whatever it is, it's not friendly. We need to go." They hurried past the cluster of flowers, the hum fading behind them, but the sense of unease lingered. Callan could feel the forest closing in around them, as if it were alive and aware of their presence. Every rustle and snap of a twig set his nerves on edge. "Keep your eyes peeled," he warned. "We're not alone here." The group pressed on, their pace quickening as they entered a clearing filled with towering crystal formations. The crystals shimmered in the sunlight, casting prismatic colors across the ground. Elena's eyes widened in awe. "This place is beautiful," she exclaimed, spinning around to take it all in. Callan allowed himself a brief smile. Even in danger, Elena found wonder. However, the beauty was deceiving. Callan sensed that something was off, a quiet stillness that felt heavy. "Stay alert," he cautioned, his gaze scanning the clearing. This could be a trap. Just as he finished speaking, a low growl resonated from behind one of the crystal structures, echoing ominously. The group froze, their hearts racing. "What was that?" Elena whispered, her earlier excitement replaced with fear. Callan held up a hand, signaling for silence. He stepped forward cautiously, his instincts heightened. "Whatever it is, we need to be ready." From behind the shimmering crystals emerged a creature unlike any they had encountered, a massive beast with sleek, armored scales and glowing eyes that seemed to pierce through the dim light. Its muscular frame rippled with power, and it moved with a predatory grace that sent chills down Callan's spine. "Everyone, get back," he shouted, positioning himself in front of his companions. Solara readied herself, her expression fierce. "We can't let it corner us," she said, her hands clenched into fists. Seraphine moved to the side, seeking an advantage point to use her abilities if necessary. Callan's mind raced. They had no weapons, but they couldn't show fear. "We need to distract it," he said, scanning the area for anything they could use. As the creature stalked closer, Callan noticed a glimmer of reflective debris scattered on the ground, a remnant from the star flare. "Solara, can you create a diversion?" he asked, formulating a quick plan. "Get its attention away from us while I grab that debris." With a quick nod, Solara stepped forward, her presence commanding. "Hey, over here," she shouted, waving her arms. The creature's glowing eyes fixed on her, momentarily distracted. Callan seized the opportunity, darting to the side and snatching up the reflective pieces. "Now," he shouted as he flung the debris into the air, the light catching the creature's attention. It lunged for the glimmering distraction, allowing Callan and the others to move back into the forest. "Go, go, go," he urged, leading the way. They ran through the thick underbrush, the sounds of the creature's frustrated growls echoing behind them. Callan could feel his heart racing, adrenaline coursing through his veins. "We have to find a way to defend ourselves," he shouted, pushing forward. "There has to be something we can use." As they navigated through the trees, Callan spotted a small, winding stream cutting through the forest. "Water," he called out, leading them toward the stream. The sound of rushing water felt like a sanctuary amidst the chaos. They reached the bank, and the sight of the clear, cool water invigorated them. "Let's take a moment to regroup," Callan suggested, glancing over at his companions. "We need to plan our next move and figure out how to defend against that creature." They knelt by the stream, drinking and splashing water on their faces to regain their composure. The coolness was refreshing, renewing their spirits. Elena, catching her breath, looked up at Callan. "What do we do now? We can't just keep running forever." Callan nodded, understanding her concerns. "We need to find a way to defend ourselves. This forest is full of potential resources. We just have to figure out how to use them." Sci-Fi dipped her hands into the water, then lifted them, examining the reflections of the trees above. There are many plants here. Some might have properties we can use to protect ourselves, she mused, her eyes sparkling with ideas. If we can find something that can mask our scent or confuse the creature, we might stand a chance. Good thinking, Callan replied, feeling a surge of hope. Let's split up and look for any plants or materials we can use, but stay within shouting distance. The group nodded in agreement, and they began to search the area, looking for anything that might aid in their survival. As Callan scoured the ground, he noticed a cluster of strange, spiky plants nearby. The spikes were long and appeared to shimmer in the light. Curious, he reached out and touched one. It felt sturdy and sharp. Zalara? Sci-Fi, come here, he called, excitement bubbling within him. The two women hurried over, their expressions curious. What did you find? Zalara asked, eyeing the plants warily. These could be useful, Callan explained, gesturing to the spikes. If we can harvest these, we might have a makeshift weapon. They're sharp enough to defend ourselves. Sci-Fi examined the plants closely. These could also be combined with other materials to create traps or distractions, she suggested, her mind racing with possibilities. Let's gather as much as we can and take it back to the stream. With renewed energy, the group collected the spiky plants and any other promising resources they could find. They returned to the bank, where they began brainstorming how to combine their findings into effective tools for defense. Once we have what we need, we can set up a perimeter, Callan said, his leadership instincts kicking in. We'll create distractions and traps to protect ourselves from that creature. The others nodded, their faces lighting up with determination. As they worked together, Callan felt a sense of unity forming among them. The earlier tension had faded, replaced by a shared purpose. They were no longer just strangers thrown together by circumstance. They were a team, ready to face whatever dangers awaited them in this alien world. Hours passed as they crafted their defenses, the sun climbing higher in the sky. Callan couldn't help but feel proud of their progress. They had turned fear into determination, isolation into camaraderie. But as the shadows began to stretch, he couldn't shake the feeling of unease that lingered. We need to finish up and find a secure spot to rest before nightfall, he advised, glancing at the setting sun. Just then, a low rumbling growl echoed through the trees. Callan's heart sank. The creature was back, and this time it sounded closer. Quick, everyone. Grab what you can and head to the trees, he commanded, adrenaline pumping through his veins. They scrambled to their feet, clutching their makeshift weapons and supplies as the growl grew louder. Callan led the charge into the thick underbrush, his instincts on high alert. The forest felt alive, the sounds amplifying as they rushed to safety. Behind them, the creature crashed through the trees, its massive form a shadowy blur. They had no time to look back, only to push forward. We need to split up and create distractions, Callan shouted, his mind racing. If we can confuse it, we might have a chance. They quickly devised a plan, scattering into the forest, their hearts pounding with the thrill of survival. As they moved, Callan felt the weight of their alliance on his shoulders. Each step forward was a testament to their resilience, a promise to protect one another. The creature roared behind them, but Callan pressed on, determined to turn their fear into strength. Together, they would face the dangers of this alien world, using their creativity and ingenuity to forge a path toward survival. And as the forest closed in around them, Callan knew that this was only the beginning of their journey, one that would test their limits and reveal their true strength. The battle of wits. With the sun dipping below the horizon, the darkness of the alien forest enveloped Callan and his companions, heightening their senses. Each rustle in the foliage felt amplified, and every shadow seemed to harbor unseen threats. They had successfully split into smaller groups, each tasked with creating diversions to confuse the menacing creature that had hunted them earlier. Callan moved stealthily through the underbrush, his heart pounding in his chest. He recalled the creature's size and speed, and his mind raced with the implications of their encounter. He had to outsmart it. As he crept forward, he spotted a cluster of luminous fungi clinging to the bark of a nearby tree. They emitted a soft, pulsing light that cast airy shadows across the ground. Perfect, he murmured to himself, recognizing the potential these fungi held. If he could use their glow to create a diversion, perhaps he could lead the creature away from his friends. He knelt beside the fungi, carefully plucking a few from their home and stowing them in a pouch he had fashioned from the glowing leaves. As he worked, he recalled Sci-Fi's earlier suggestion about using the local flora to create traps. A plan began to form in his mind. If he could combine the glowing fungi with the sharp spikes they had collected, it might be possible to create an effective distraction that could confuse the creature and buy them time to regroup. Callan stood up, his mind buzzing with possibilities, and moved deeper into the forest, keeping a watchful eye out for any signs of the creature. He could hear the soft thud of footsteps nearby, and he knew he needed to act quickly. As he navigated through the trees, he spotted a clearing ahead, an open space that would serve as the perfect arena for his plan. "Zalara," he called out, spotting her moving stealthily from behind a tree. "Over here. I think I have an idea." She turned, her fierce expression lighting up with interest as she approached. "What do you have in mind?" Callan shared his thoughts about the glowing fungi and the sharp spikes. "If we can create a glowing trap, we might be able to lure the creature into a position where it can't reach us, at least momentarily." Zalara nodded, clearly on board with the plan. "Let's set it up quickly before it finds us. We can use the spikes to create a barricade around the fungi." They quickly gathered the remaining spikes from their earlier haul and positioned them in a circular formation around the glowing fungi. The sharp points jutted out menacingly, creating a makeshift barrier. Callan's heart raced with anticipation as he stepped back to admire their work. "Now, we just need to wait for our friend to show up," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. Zalara nodded, scanning the treetops for any signs of the creature. "We should keep our distance but remain ready. If it charges, we need to be prepared to react." The two of them crouched behind a cluster of thick bushes, the glow from the fungi casting an otherworldly light around them. Minutes felt like hours as they waited in silence, the tension palpable in the air. Callan's mind raced with thoughts of survival. He couldn't shake the feeling that their lives were intertwined now, that they were not just fighting for themselves, but for each other. The bond they had forged in such a short time was becoming a lifeline, one he was determined to protect. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the forest, followed by a deep, resonating growl. Callan's heart leaped into his throat as he realized the creature had returned, drawn by the luminous glow of the fungi. "Get ready," he whispered urgently to Zalara, who nodded, her muscles tense with anticipation. As the massive creature entered the clearing, Callan felt a rush of adrenaline. Its sleek, armored scales glinted in the soft light, and its glowing eyes locked onto the fungi, seemingly mesmerized by the pulsing glow. "Now," Callan shouted, hoping to execute their plan flawlessly. The creature lunged toward the glowing fungi, its massive jaws opening wide as it snapped at the brilliant light. Callan and Zalara sprang into action, darting to the side to avoid the beast. The sharp spikes, hidden beneath the foliage, caught the creature off guard as it stumbled into their makeshift trap. With a powerful roar, it collided with the spikes, the sound of metal scraping against its scales echoing in the clearing. "It's working," Callan shouted, a surge of triumph swelling within him. The creature thrashed about, confused and disoriented, its attention diverted from Callan and Zalara. "Now's our chance. We need to regroup with Sci-Fi and Elena." They took off, sprinting through the forest as the creature continued its furious attempts to free itself from the trap. Callan led the way, his heart racing as he called out for Sci-Fi and Elena. "We need to find them. They could be in danger." As they navigated through the twisting trees, the sounds of the creature behind them faded into the distance. They reached a small clearing where the forest opened up, revealing a glimmering pond at its center. The water sparkled in the fading light, and for a moment, Callan thought of stopping to catch his breath. But he quickly shook off the thought. They have to keep moving. "Where are they?" he murmured, scanning the area anxiously. Just as he began to worry, he spotted Sci-Fi and Elena emerging from the trees on the opposite side. Relief washed over him, and he waved his arms to get their attention. "Over here. We're safe." The two women rushed toward them, a mix of fear and excitement in their eyes. "Did you see that creature?" Elena exclaimed, her voice trembling. "It almost got us." Sci-Fi nodded, her expression serious. "We need to regroup and come up with a solid plan. That thing isn't going to give up easily." Callan glanced back at the path they had taken, listening for any signs of the creature's return. "We managed to distract it, but it's likely still out there, searching for us," he explained. "I have an idea, but we'll need to work quickly." As they gathered around the pond, Callan explained his plan to create a series of traps using the glowing fungi and sharp spikes. "If we can lay them out in strategic locations, we can lure the creature away from us and have a better chance of escaping," he said, his mind racing with possibilities. Sci-Fi nodded thoughtfully. "That could work, but we need to ensure we have a safe retreat. I can sense that the creature has heightened awareness. If we draw it in too close, it may become too aggressive." Zalara chimed in, her fierce determination shining through. "Then let's make our traps far enough away from us to provide a safe distance. We can use the terrain to our advantage." "Agreed," Callan replied, feeling the adrenaline surging through him. "Let's split into two teams. Sci-Fi and Elena, you scout the area for the best locations for the traps. Zalara and I will gather more supplies and create the bait." They quickly divided into their respective teams and set to work. Callan and Zalara moved deeper into the forest, searching for additional sharp spikes and anything else they could use to enhance their traps. The tension hung heavy in the air as they navigated through the underbrush, but there was a sense of purpose propelling them forward. As they worked, Callan couldn't shake the feeling that the creature was watching them. Every rustle in the leaves made his heart race. "Do you think it knows we're here?" he asked Zalara, who was crouched down inspecting a cluster of sharp thorns. "It's possible," she replied, her eyes scanning the treetops. "But we're not making ourselves easy targets. We just have to be quick and clever." Callan nodded, appreciating her steadfastness. Together, they gathered what they needed and fashioned makeshift traps, using the spikes and the glowing fungi as bait. The minutes felt like hours, the anticipation of danger looming over them like a dark cloud. Finally, they had enough traps ready to set up. "Let's get back to the pond," Callan urged, motioning for Zalara to follow him. They moved quickly, retracing their steps back to the clearing where they had left Sci-Fi and Elena. When they arrived, they found the two women waiting, excitement shining in their eyes. "We found some great locations," Sci-Fi said, gesturing to the map they had drawn in the dirt. "We can set the traps near the edge of the pond where the ground is softer. It'll be easier for the creature to get caught in the spikes if it charges at the glowing fungi." Callan felt a surge of pride at their teamwork. "Let's get to it," he said, pointing to the first location. They worked in unison, laying out the traps and using the glowing fungi as bait to lure the creature closer. Each member of the group took turns placing the spikes and arranging the fungi, their energy building as they saw the traps take shape. Once the traps were set, they stepped back to admire their work. "This should buy us some time," Callan said, glancing at the setting sun. "But we need to find a way to defend ourselves once it comes for the bait." Zalara nodded, a fierce look in her eyes. "I can climb one of the trees nearby. From there, I'll have a vantage point to keep an eye on the creature. If it gets too close, I'll signal you to move." Callan felt a rush of admiration for her bravery. "That's a great idea. Just be careful up there." Zalara nodded, swiftly making her way up the tree, her agile movements showing her skill and confidence. With Zalara in position, Callan and the others settled in, hiding behind the thick foliage to wait for the creature to take the bait. The atmosphere was tense as they listened to the sounds of the forest, each noise amplifying their anxiety. Minutes stretched into an eternity as they waited. Just as the first stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky, Callan caught sight of movement in the shadows. The creature emerged, its massive form blending with the darkness, drawn to the glowing fungi that pulsed softly like a beacon. "Here it comes," Callan whispered, adrenaline surging through him. The creature approached cautiously, its glowing eyes locked onto the fungi. Callan could feel a tension building within him. This was the moment they had prepared for. Solara remained alert in the tree, her eyes fixed on the creature as it moved closer to the bait. Callan's heart raced as the creature lunged toward the fungi, its jaws wide open. "Now," he shouted, his voice echoing through the clearing. The creature collided with the spikes, the sharp points piercing its thick hide. It roared in frustration, thrashing about as it became ensnared in the trap they had set. Callan felt a rush of triumph. It worked. Keep it distracted. Solara jumped down from the tree, her fierce energy fueling their confidence. "Let's regroup and prepare to finish this," she called out, rallying the group. They rushed forward, using the opportunity to surround the creature, their makeshift weapons ready. With the creature struggling against the trap, Callan felt a sense of determination wash over him. "We need to work together. Let's drive it back," he shouted, leading the charge. They attacked the creature from different angles, using their sharp spikes to keep it at bay. The creature lashed out, its powerful jaws snapping inches away from Callan as he ducked and rolled to the side. The forest erupted into chaos as they fought to maintain control. Callan could hear the creature growling, its frustration palpable. "Keep pushing. We can't let it get free," Solara shouted, her voice fierce as she struck at the creature's flank. Callan could see the fearlessness in her eyes, a testament to their growth as a team. They were no longer just individual survivors, they were united, fighting for each other. As the creature continued to thrash against the trap, Sci-Fi stepped forward, her hands glowing with energy. "I can try to calm it. Just give me a moment," she called out. Callan hesitated but nodded, trusting her instincts. Sci-Fi closed her eyes, her voice soothing as she chanted words in a melodic tone. The creature paused, its growls subsiding as it focused on her. Callan watched in awe as Sci-Fi's energy enveloped the beast, creating a moment of stillness amid the chaos. "Now, while it's distracted," Callan shouted, rushing forward with the others. They struck in unison, using the advantage to drive the creature back further into the trap. The creature let out a final roar as it succumbed to their efforts, its strength waning. With a final push, they managed to secure the creature, trapping it against the spikes. They stood together, panting heavily as they surveyed their hard-fought victory. "We did it," Callan breathed, a mix of disbelief and triumph flooding through him. Sci-Fi smiled, her eyes shining with relief. "Together, we're stronger than we realized," she said, her voice filled with warmth. Callan nodded, feeling a profound sense of connection to his companions. They had faced incredible danger, but they had done it together. As they regrouped around the defeated creature, they knew they had a long way to go before they could consider themselves safe. But in that moment, they also knew they had forged an unbreakable bond, one that would carry them through whatever challenges lay ahead on this alien world. With newfound determination, they began to discuss their next steps. They needed to gather more resources and create a plan to escape this planet. Callan felt hopeful as he looked at his companions, each of them strong in their own right. Together, they would face whatever came next, ready to conquer the unknown. The search for answers. The moon hung high in the sky, casting a silvery glow of the forest as Callan and his companions gathered around the captured creature. Their hearts were still racing from the adrenaline of the battle, but a new challenge lay ahead. They needed to find answers about this planet and what dangers awaited them beyond the forest. "Now that we've secured the creature, we should examine it," Callan suggested, glancing at the beast, which lay restrained but still breathing heavily. Its eyes flickered with confusion, a mix of fear and aggression. Maybe it can tell us more about this planet and its inhabitants. Zalara stepped closer, her fierce demeanor softened by a hint of curiosity. We need to be cautious. It may not respond well to our presence, she warned, her eyes narrowed as she studied the creature. But if it can communicate, we might learn something vital. Sci-Fi nodded in agreement, her gentle nature compelling her to approach the creature with care. I can try to connect with it, she said softly. If it senses my intentions are peaceful, perhaps it will respond. Callan watched as Sci-Fi knelt beside the creature, her hands glowing softly as she reached out. He felt a wave of admiration for her bravery and compassion. It took a unique strength to approach a dangerous being with the hope of understanding rather than violence. As Sci-Fi made contact, a tense silence enveloped the clearing. The creature flinched at first, its powerful body tensing. Callan held his breath, worried that their efforts would be in vain. But Sci-Fi remained calm, a soothing voice a melody that echoed in the stillness. Easy now, she whispered, her voice filled with warmth. I mean you no harm. We just want to understand. Callan could see the creature's eyes shifting, its breathing slowing as it began to respond to Sci-Fi's presence. Slowly, the creature relaxed, its muscles untensing as it accepted her approach. I think it understands, Sci-Fi said, her eyes shining with hope. It's afraid, just like us. What do you sense from it? Callan asked, his heart pounding with anticipation. Sci-Fi closed her eyes, focusing on the connection she had established. It's lonely. It has been alone for a long time. This forest is its territory, and we have intruded. Callan exchanged glances with Zalara and Elena. So it's not just a mindless predator, he mused, feeling a flicker of understanding. It's protecting its home. Sci-Fi nodded. But we also need to know why it attacked us. There must be something deeper. As she continued to communicate with the creature, Callan felt a sense of hope. They were not just fighting for survival anymore. They were beginning to bridge the gap between their worlds. After a few moments, Sci-Fi opened her eyes, her expression serious. It tells me that there are dangers beyond the forest. Other creatures that are more aggressive and territorial. This one was only defending itself. Then we need to understand more about these dangers, Zalara said, her determination returning. We can't just sit here and hope for the best. We need a plan. Callan agreed, his mind racing with possibilities. If we can learn about the other creatures and what drives them, we can find a way to navigate this world safely. We'll have to explore deeper into the forest and gather information. As they discussed their next steps, the creature lay quietly, its glowing eyes watching them. Callan felt a sense of responsibility wash over him. We should release it, he said suddenly, surprising himself with his own conviction. We've captured it, and it could help us find a way to coexist in this environment. Zalara raised an eyebrow, clearly taken aback. Are you sure? It could pose a threat. Perhaps, but it has shown us it is more than just a predator, Callan replied, looking at the creature, which seemed to sense their conversation. If we let it go, it might help us find a safer route through the forest. It knows this territory better than we do. Sci-Fi nodded in agreement, her gentle spirit shining through. If we approach this with empathy, it could lead to a partnership. This planet is full of unknowns, and we'll need allies. With a collective sigh, they made the decision to set the creature free. Callan carefully untied the restraints, watching as the creature shook itself off, its glowing scales glimmering in the moonlight. He felt a strange sense of kinship with it, as if they were both outsiders trying to find their way in a world that was not their own. Thank you, Sci-Fi said softly, her voice carrying across the clearing as the creature stood tall, its eyes locked onto hers. We mean no harm. We just want to understand and survive. With a final look back, the creature turned and vanished into the shadows, its powerful form disappearing among the trees. Callan felt a mix of relief and uncertainty. What now? He asked, turning to his companions. We need to gather supplies and information, Zilara said, her fierce determination shining through. If there are more dangers ahead, we must prepare ourselves. As they began to move deeper into the forest, Callan couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of something significant. Their journey had taken a turn toward understanding rather than mere survival, and he felt a sense of purpose growing within him. The group moved cautiously through the dense foliage, their senses heightened as they navigated the darkened landscape. Each step felt heavy with the weight of uncertainty, but Callan was determined to uncover the truth about this planet and the challenges they faced. As they ventured deeper, the trees grew thicker, and the sounds of the forest changed. The chirping of insects was replaced by a low, rhythmic thrum that seemed to vibrate through the ground beneath their feet. "What is that?" Elena asked, her eyes wide with wonder and fear. "It could be another creature," Callan replied, straining to listen. "Or it might be something more." He glanced at Sci-Fi, who was quietly attuned to the energy around them. "What do you sense?" Sci-Fi paused, closing her eyes as she focused on the vibrations. "There's a pulse, a heartbeat to the forest," she said slowly. "It feels alive, almost sentient, but there's also a presence of danger, something lurking beneath the surface." "Great," Zilara muttered, her eyes scanning the area for movement. "Just what we need, more unknowns." Callan led the way, keeping his instincts sharp as they navigated the increasingly eerie landscape. The thrum intensified, echoing in their chests as they moved further along the path. "We need to find out where that sound is coming from," he said, pushing forward with resolve. Suddenly, the ground beneath them shook, and the rhythmic thrum transformed into a cacophony of growls and screeches. "What was that?" Elena shouted, panic rising in her voice. Callan could feel his heart racing. "Stay together," he barked, urging his companions forward as the sound grew louder. They emerged into a wide clearing, and what they saw took their breath away. Before them lay a vast expanse of bioluminescent flora, pulsating in vibrant colors that danced in sync with the sound. In the center of the clearing stood a colossal structure, an ancient-looking tree that towered over them, its trunk wide enough to encompass a small house. "The heart of the forest," Callan whispered in awe. The air was thick with energy, the pulsing light radiating from the tree casting an otherworldly glow over the entire clearing. It felt as if they had stumbled upon a sacred place. "What is this?" Sci-Fi asked, her voice barely a whisper. Callan approached the tree, feeling drawn to its presence. "I think it's some sort of central hub for the forest," he replied, running his fingers along the bark. It felt warm beneath his touch, alive in a way that was almost palpable. Suddenly, the growls and screeches intensified, pulling their attention away from the magnificent tree. A swarm of creatures emerged from the shadows, smaller than the one they had captured, but just as menacing. Their bodies were covered in sharp spines, and they moved in a coordinated frenzy toward the clearing. "Get back," Callan shouted, pushing his companions behind him as he prepared to defend them. The creatures converged on the tree, their eyes locked onto the pulsing glow emanating from its trunk. "They're attracted to the tree," Zilara shouted, readying her stance. "We need to protect the heart," Sci-Fi said, her voice urgent. "If they damage it, who knows what will happen to the forest?" Callan nodded, his heart pounding. "We have to push them away. Use the spikes." He grabbed one of the makeshift weapons they had created earlier, readying himself for the impending battle. The swarm of creatures moved with alarming speed, their growls echoing in the clearing as they closed in on the tree. As the first wave reached the base of the heart, Callan swung his weapon, striking one of the creatures. It recoiled, letting out a shrill screech before collapsing to the ground. "Keep fighting," he shouted, adrenaline coursing through him as he fought off the oncoming swarm. Zilara and Sci-Fi moved beside him, their determination palpable. The clearing erupted into chaos as the creatures launched their attack, but Callan and his, defending the heart of the forest. Callan swung his weapon with renewed vigor, feeling the weight of his responsibility pressing down on him. The creatures surged forward, their spiny bodies bristling as they lunged at the heart of the forest. "We have to protect the tree," he shouted, adrenaline pumping through his veins as he fought to keep them at bay. Zelara was a force of nature beside him, her fierce strikes echoing through the clearing. She moved with practiced precision, her every blow aimed at the advancing creatures. Sci-Fi, with her nurturing spirit transformed into fierce resolve, used her knowledge of the local flora to create makeshift barriers, calling upon the surrounding vegetation to entangle and slow the oncoming horde. "Use the vines," Sci-Fi shouted, her hands glowing as she directed the nearby plants to wrap around the attacking creatures, buying them precious time. The vibrant flora responded to her call, twining around the creatures' legs and dragging them to the ground. Callan could feel the tide of the battle shifting, but they needed to act quickly. "We can't let them reach the tree," Callan yelled, rallying his companions. He struck down another creature, its screech piercing the air as it fell. But for every creature he felled, two more took its place, driven by an instinct to claim the heart. "Focus on the ones closest to the tree." Zelara nodded, her fierce gaze locked onto a particularly large creature that was clawing its way toward the base of the tree. "I'll take that one." She sprinted forward, her weapon raised, and with a powerful leap, she struck the creature down. Its spines glittered in the dim light as it crumpled, and for a brief moment, Callan felt a surge of hope. But the onslaught continued. The swarm had not diminished. If anything, it grew more ferocious, fueled by an unseen force. Callan could feel the ground trembling beneath their feet, the forest itself reacting to the chaos unfolding. He glanced back at Sci-Fi, who was chanting softly, her eyes closed in concentration. "I need a distraction," she called, her voice filled with urgency. "On it," Callan shouted. He quickly formulated a plan. "Zelara, keep pushing them back. I'll try to draw their attention." He sprinted toward the edge of the clearing, waving his arms and yelling at the creatures to divert their focus from the tree. As Callan ran, he could hear the creatures' snarls and growls intensifying, their predatory instincts drawn to his movement. He felt a thrill of fear, but pushed it aside, channeling it into his determination. "Hey, over here," he shouted, his voice echoing through the clearing. "Come get me." The creatures began to shift, their glowing eyes zeroing in on him. Callan's heart raced as he felt their attention shift from the heart of the forest. "Now, Sci-Fi," he shouted. "Now." Sci-Fi opened her eyes, her hands glowing with energy as she summoned the plants around them to grow more robust and entwine around the advancing creatures. Vines shot up from the ground, wrapping around the creatures and pulling them back as they tried to charge at Callan. "Keep it up," Callan encouraged her, dodging to the side as a creature lunged at him. He could hear the thud of its body against the ground as Sci-Fi's vines constricted around it. "We can't let them overwhelm us." Zelara fought valiantly beside him, her strength matching Callan's determination. "We need to keep them off balance," she shouted, her weapons striking true as she knocked another creature aside. The clearing was filled with the sounds of battle, the growls of the creatures, the clash of weapons, and the vibrant energy of the forest coming alive. Callan felt the tide turning. Their strategy was working. With Sci-Fi guiding the plants to create barriers and Zelara holding the front line, they were slowly but surely pushing the creatures back. "We're gaining ground," Callan shouted, feeling the fire of victory igniting within him. But as the creatures began to falter, a thunderous roar shook the ground, and Callan's heart sank. Emerging from the shadows of the trees was a massive beast, larger than anything they had encountered yet. Its scales shimmered with a dark iridescence, and its eyes glowed with a fierce intelligence. It let out a powerful roar that reverberated through the clearing, causing the smaller creatures to pause and regroup. "What in the galaxy is that?" Elena gasped, her voice barely above a whisper as she pointed at the new threat. "That's not just a creature, it's a guardian," Callan realized, fear and awe intertwining in his chest. "We've upset the balance of this forest, and now the protector is here. The massive guardian creature glared at them, its presence demanding attention and respect. Callan felt a wave of dread wash over him. They were no longer just fighting for survival, they were now confronting the very essence of the forest. "Get back," Callan commanded, waving his arms for his companions to retreat. "We need to rethink our strategy. We can't take that thing on directly." Selara nodded, her expression fierce but cautious. "It's here to protect the heart. If we give it a reason to see us as a threat, we'll be overwhelmed." Sci-Fi, sensing the gravity of the situation, moved closer to Callan. "We need to appeal to its nature," she said, her voice steady. "It won't attack if it doesn't see us as a danger. I can try to communicate with it." Callan felt a pang of fear. "Are you sure? It's huge." "I have to try," Sci-Fi insisted, her determination unwavering. "If we want to survive here, we need to understand this world and its guardians. Trust me." Callan exchanged a worried glance with Selara, but ultimately nodded. "All right, we'll cover you. Just be careful." Sci-Fi approached the massive guardian, her hands raised in a gesture of peace. The creature eyed her with a mix of suspicion and curiosity. Callan could feel the tension in the air as Sci-Fi began to speak softly, her voice a melodic whisper that seemed to resonate with the forest itself. "Great guardian of the forest," she began, her voice steady and soothing. "We mean you no harm. We are lost and seeking knowledge, not conflict." She stepped closer, her glowing hands outstretched as if offering a bond. The guardian creature let out a low rumble, its eyes narrowing as it studied Sci-Fi. The smaller creatures, sensing the shift in the atmosphere, began to withdraw, forming a protective ring around their guardian. "We come from afar," Sci-Fi continued, her voice unwavering. "Our only desire is to understand this world and to find a way to coexist. We respect your domain and seek your guidance." Callan held his breath, watching intently as the guardian's demeanor shifted. It hesitated, and for a brief moment, Callan felt a glimmer of hope. The glowing flora surrounding the heart pulsed in response to Sci-Fi's voice, as if the entire forest was listening.